Okay, so a really great feature with Illustrator, and we use this quite a lot, is called the image trace. This allows us to bring in an image, any image, and turn it into a vector. So it'll laser. We can laser engrave it or laser cut it. So the first thing I want to do is um, find an image online, right? So what I will do is I'll just pull up Google. You can get any image. I'll just type in, let's say, just take some mountain, for example. I'll go to images. Let's find one. Um, this looks kind of, so we'll take this one. All I need to do here is if you right click, click copy image, and you go back to Illustrator, you can right click, hit paste, or you can go up where it says edit on the top toolbar and click paste. Now, typically when it comes in, it's too big. You can resize it over here like we did with the name tag, the width, the height, to get the exact, or I could just shrink it down. Um, it's roughly 3 by 1 3/4, so that's fine. So you can see it's really pixelated. And we could laser this, it would come out, but we want to change this into a laser vector. So I select it, and over on the right hand side, you have some options. See how it says image trace? So if I click image trace here, what you want to do is just click default and it will automatically change it to a black and white. Now, what you want to do is if you like it, great. Otherwise, on the right hand side, you want to open where it says open the image trace panel. It looks like a little checklist. Click that. And there's a bunch of stuff here. We really only need to focus with two things. The threshold, we can click and move this so it changes the contrast. You can see it's starting to change, lighten up a little bit to more. It doesn't look that good as a black and white. It's not that detailed. If you go up to preset, if I click that where it says custom, now we typically deal with grayscale, so colors don't matter. It'll automatically transfer the colors to black and white or grayscale when we bring it into the laser software. So what I can do is go down where it says shades of gray, click that, and what it will do is it will give me shades of gray. So depending on how the color looks, see, you can see it kind of smooth everything out now. It's not as detailed, but it still looks like mountains. And I can again change the threshold to kind of get the picture that I want. And this looks okay. So for whatever reason, if I wanted to laser engrave this onto a piece of wood, I could. Remember, we're typically cutting things out too, unless we're doing a thick piece of wood that we can't cut out. So if I wanted this on a piece of wood, I would need to now draw either some sort of shape around it. For this, I'll just draw a rectangle and make sure that the color of this rectangle, the stroke, is red. Um, and it would engrave this and cut it out. Okay, so that's cool. You can also take an image. So I'll just bring in. We got Bill Murray, famous, one of the greats, right? I'll bring in a picture of Bill Murray here. So say I'll take this picture, right click, copy image, back into Illustrator, paste. If I hold Alt and zoom out, way too big, so I'm just going to scale this down. Right, I'm holding Alt and using the roller wheel to zoom out. If I push down on the roller wheel, I can pan back and forth. It takes a while to learn how to navigate, but you'll figure it out. So I could laser engrave this and it would come out. But if I want to turn this into a vector, if you zoom in, you can see the pixels. The laser is accurate enough to show that stuff. And if it's small, you won't notice it too much. But for this, what we want to do is, again, make sure it's selected. Over here on the right and click image trace, default. Now it's going to change it to black and white. This, if it looks good, it looks good. If you want to keep it black and white, leave the preset alone to default, and you can change the threshold. So I can go back, make it lighter contrast, darker. You can kind of create an interesting effect with this. Again, maybe I want the preset to be shades of gray. Take some time to load, depending on how many shades. So again, that came out pretty clear. You can still see if you zoom in, it turns it into a vector. So it's no more pixels, right? So again, I can do more or less depending on what you're trying to do. Depending on how big the file is, it does take a few seconds to load. So be patient. You can see it's a little bit more detailed, right? So if that looks good, we'll leave it. Again, it won't cut this out because there's no red in here. So what you could do, maybe I just want to cut out, we'll say an ellipse. So I'll draw an ellipse, make sure again it's red. Shrink it down. Now I could leave it at like that. Now I could leave it like this and it will engrave everything, but then it will just cut out that ellipse if you just want that part cut out. But again, to keep it simple, we can just create, again, just a rectangle. Around that, it will snap to that outline and we have our pieces. So we'll just put them side by side. So again, in an image, again, it's easy to bring in vectors, even if you bring in something that is already a cartoon. So say I bring in, I'll do one more, for example, we'll bring in Mario. Again, I could bring in Mario black and white. If I bring this in, you still want to make sure, copy this. Even though this is a digital design, when I paste this in here, you can see it's still pixelated, right, when I zoom in. So you want to make sure you scale it down. And there's a few other things. When I bring some in, sometimes there's other icons. So what I do is, again, image trace this, default. It probably will look good. Yeah, good enough. So zoom in. Again, it smooth out the pixels. You can see here, there's a bunch of stuff that I don't want in my design. So what I might do is if I click this, there's another button called expand. When you click this, it'll break up these individual segments. So now I can edit these individually. So what I can do is if I click the direct selection tool, I can come back here and click and get rid of all these letters down here that I don't want in these chunks here. Kind of clean it up a little bit. That's called the expand tool. Now this is great too because we don't use colors much with the laser at all, but what I can use is grayscale. So I might want the hat, segments of the hat. Maybe I want this to be a lighter gray and it will engrave that a little bit lighter. So I can change, maybe I want his hands or his body. So I can hold shift as I click more. I want this to be, again, just darker. So it'll engrave that. So you can kind of get a little bit creative when you use, again, that's the expand tool. So when I bring something in, or when I bring the image in, that is after you image trace it, make sure it's selected. On the right-hand side, you'll see that expand button. It breaks everything up into segments, and that's a really helpful tool. Okay, so that's the image trace tool. Very important. We use this a lot.